Ladies and gents, this is the moment you've waited for. The time has finally come. This is it. We finally made it. We're in the endgame now. At long last, we have arrived at the grand finale of the Danganronpa story. After every twist and turn we've encountered along the way, every character that's been steamrolled, every single wave of bullshit the writers have thrown our way to try to knock us down, we've survived it all, and we've finally made it to the end of the line. So, without further ado, let's finish this fucking nightmare. We begin with Athena handing over 2 USB drives to Old Guy. One of them contains the video that caused everyone to succumb to ultimate despair, and the other contains the video that caused all the Reserve Corps students to commit the big die. Now, obviously you and I, as viewers, are aware of how exactly she came to obtain those videos, but Old Guy doesn't know she's the big bad yet, so how exactly does he think she got a hold of these? Does he not care? Is he not gonna ask her? Is the fact that she has them at all not gonna raise any red flags for you? No? Okay then. So then Athena suggests to Old Guy that he should recruit the person who created this technology, that being John Lasseter, which first of all is bullshit because one of those videos is raw security footage that he had no impact on creating, and the other is something that he shouldn't be able to create because being an animator doesn't mean you know how to brainwash people. But more importantly, did you hear that? Athena suggests that Old Guy should hire John Lasseter to help them fight since he has valuable skills that the Future Foundation could use to their advantage once they turn him to the good side. Do you see any glaring problems here? Because I don't know about you guys, but that almost sounds like exactly what you all arrested Makoto for doing with the Remnants of Despair! How in the world can you say this out loud and then proceed to get on Makoto's ass for converting the Remnants of Despair? Jesus Christ, you people are such massive fucking hypocrites! Next we jump back to Lasseter getting a message from the dead, and I have no idea how this fucking happens. This is never explained. How did Old Guy engineer a text message to be sent after his death? Even if he was able to set up a scheduled email or something, how can you schedule it around your death? Anyway, his message amounts to diddly-do. You can unironically get a more insightful conversation out of listening to Sesame Street than listening to this message. Basically, he hired the hopeful students of the next generation so we could watch them all turn to despair. Woohoo. This message is nullified within this episode, so who fucking cares? Let's just move on. Now, you may have noticed that the show has run out of plot again since the killing game is now officially over. And what happens whenever the show runs out of plot? We get a villain swap! Yay! John Lasseter confesses his love for anime and how Junko abused that to bring about the end of the world. And as a result of those actions, he has now decided to permanently end despair, and he is going to accomplish that task by using his brand new video to brainwash the entire planet into reversing the despair and bringing hope to all. What the fuck? Why do you have this? I'm not fucking kidding here. We don't see him make this. We don't see him mess around on his phone. He just says that he needs to make things right. And then 1 second later, he pulls out his phone and he just has a video ready to go that's going to restore hope to the world. Why? You were terrified of literally everything up until 2 seconds ago. Why would you have made this? And even if we look past the why element here, if you had already made this, then why didn't you show it to anyone in the months, possibly years, between you watching a show and the moment the killing game began? All your life, you've been regretting what you did and looking for a way to make things right. But it's only now that you decided to right your wrongs because the show ran out of plot again. Fucking fantastic. What phenomenal writing. Just throw a dart at the wheel whenever the plot runs dry to pick your new villain, regardless of whether the motivations make any sense at all. But then, Makoto says,
I get what you're saying, but at the end of the day, it's still just brainwashing.
What? Makoto? What the fuck did you do to the Remnants of Despair? Just give them all nap time? The entire point of the Neo World program was to reprogram their brains to turn them to the side of hope instead of despair. How can you possibly criticize Lasseter for this? Also, are you kidding me? You don't want to do this plan because you'd be forcing people to not feel despair anymore? What fucking moronic logic? Hey, you know what, guys? Phineas, Ferb, and Isabella? They were the bad guys in Night of the Living Pharmacists. Sure, all these people were turned into doof zombies against their will, but who cares? Maybe they liked being zombies. Who are you to force them back into being humans? Fucking villains. You know what, guys? SpongeBob was the true villain of his movie. Sure, all the citizens of Bikini Bottom were brainwashed into serving plankton and attending to his every command, but maybe they enjoyed wearing the chum bucket helmets. Who are you to give them their agency back? Fucking villain. You know what, guys? Triss and Four are the villains of Diversion for freeing the Dauntless from mind control. Aladdin's the villain of his movie for breaking the Sultan out of Jafar's control. Hell, the Avengers are the villains of Endgame, forcing everyone back to life against their will. Fucking villains! Do you see how this makes no sense? This is broken logic. This is ludicrous. The only reason you are in this mess right now is because the world was brainwashed into succumbing to despair. If he has a video that he can use to reverse brainwashing, why the fuck wouldn't you want him to do that? Oh, is it because this video will force people to only be hopeful forever with no possibility for negative emotions like sadness? Because if that's the case, then I have a very easy solution for you. Just make his new video undo the old brainwashing! That's it! No new fancy bells or whistles, just a straight up one-to-one reversal of what happened to cause this disaster in the first place. Kinda like what you did in the Neo World program. But nope! They just make him the villain because he finally decides to fix his mistakes for no reason, and because Makoto and Hina are too stupid to just tell him to make the slightest alterations to his video. Fuck the hell off, you dumbass show! This is our final villain. This is the climax of the show. This is the end game for Danganronpa, and it all boils down to this little shit with his stupid brainwashing video that didn't exist until 2 fucking seconds ago. Fuck off! Hina tries to tell him to calm down, but then he pulls another fucking video out of his ass that brainwashes Hina into following his every command! What the fuck?! You just got done prattling on about how much you regretted helping Junko take over the world, and yet you still have videos on your phone that can brainwash people and rob them of their agency? I swear to God, this fucking script, what is this? Who wrote this?
Don't let Naegi interfere.
Wait, this one needs verbal commands? Why does this one need verbal commands? All the other ones were able to stand on their own. Why does this one need verbal commands to help it achieve its task? How is that supposed to jive with your animation skills? No, fuck it, we're stopping this dead in its tracks. There is so much to go over here. If you were able to recognize that your technology is what is being used in these monitors, despite the fact that to this very moment you've still never actually seen the brainwashing video, why would you not have broken all the monitors as soon as you fucking got here? Actually, no, scratch that. He doesn't even need to recognize that it's his technology. All he has to know is that his technology existed at all, because everyone knows that Monokuma has always been controlled by Junko and Ashima. So why would you not have immediately assumed that your technology was going to be used in this killing game again, when the most glaring problem with the killing game at the beginning of the show was that as far as anyone knew, there was no way to guarantee that the attacker would kill anyone. In other words, the bad guy needed some kind of technology to control people! How did you not immediately realize that this might be a problem, especially when the monitors did not exist until this game began and just decided to break them all as soon as you got here? And again, why do you have this shit ready to go if you're supposed to be on the side of hope? If you were so determined to do good by the world, why do you have a video that literally makes people succumb to your every command? Good God, these writers have absolutely no idea what's happening in this story anymore. So then Hina restrains Makoto while John Lasseter walks away to take over the tri-state area, and I shit you not, Makoto has absolutely no idea what to do next. He's stunned. He can't figure out how to get out of this grip. How about you try to stomp on her foot, or back kick her in the knee, or anything you can do to try to make her loosen her grip on you. Don't just sit around like a soggy flower pot. Then some soldiers drop down into the replica facility. No, I have no idea how they figured out that this was a replica facility. Don't think about it. Remember, thinking is a crime. And we proceed to get a montage of them bursting into different rooms and shouting, "Clear!" No, I am not kidding. I am not lying to you. This actually happens in the show. But then it gets worse, because they just so happen to bump into John Lasseter. Sure is unlucky for the lucky student that they didn't bump into him first instead. And then he proceeds to brainwash the leader into following his every command just like he did to Hina. But he only brainwashes one of the several soldiers in the shot, and the rest of them just stand around like useless turkeys while the leader of their squad is clearly being brainwashed. They just don't care. They just stand around and let their captain's brain become a pile of mush. What incredible teammates. And somehow, he is actually able to transmit this video to every single soldier on the team? How? Your visors have heads-up displays capable of receiving video transmission? This isn't Halo. You don't have sci-fi HUDs like this. What is this shit? How did you send him a file? Did you airdrop it to him through your visors? Wait a minute. Even if there were a means to be able to do this, how do you have the file? Lasseter is the one with the file. How did you send everyone a file that he has through your visor? None of this makes any sense. Who wrote this? So he mobilizes the troops to go find Makoto and kill him, and so he fucking dies. Oh wait, no he doesn't, because he activates his plot armor again, and the Steel Samurai just so happens to stumble into where Makoto is and knock out the soldiers hounding him literal seconds before he is executed. Fucking kill me. Then in the very next scene, Hina is back to normal? What? How did you break her out of her mind control? Can you stay consistent with how this stupid technology works for 5 seconds, please? Now you'd all better brace yourselves, because we're about to get cognitive diarrhea round 75. Makoto figures out that because old guy was surprised that John Lasseter showed up, he didn't intend for him to become a part of the killing game at all. In fact, he never had any malicious intentions whatsoever. His goal the entire time was to subject everyone to the killing game, just so it would push Lasseter over the edge, and force him to use his hope video to restore the world. What? What in the holiest of fucks did you just tell me? Who wrote that and thought it made even the slightest bit of sense? How could old guy have possibly been surprised that Lasseter showed up when he directly addressed you when he apologized for being late? He clearly knew you were expecting him if he thought to say that. You can't be late to something that you weren't expected to be on time for in the first place. What are you talking about? If you didn't intend him to be a part of the killing game, then how the fuck did you have a bracelet ready for him to go with the programming required to tailor a specific secret achievement for him? Wait a minute, how do these bracelets even work? How can they possibly work at all? How are the secret achievements triggered? There's nobody in any hidden room that's monitoring all this shit. How are these things triggered? It's reasonable to deduce that the bracelet might be measuring your heart rate with similar technology that the Apple Watch uses to monitor the amount of blood flowing through your wrist. That would be enough to determine whether Makoto is running in the hall, so long as you cross-reference it with some kind of speedometer and an RFID chip that can pinpoint your location so it knows whether you're in the halls or not. And for Kyoko's secret achievement, you can just link her band to Makoto's, and so long as his still detects a heart rate, hers will inject the poison after round 4. But that is exactly where this stops making sense. How the fuck does the bracelet know whether the farmer saw violence or not? How does it know whether your hand opens or closes? How does it detect if someone puts food in your mouth? How does it detect if you're being punched or kicked? How does it know if you tell a lie? How does it know if you step on someone's fucking shadow? How could this possibly work? This technology makes no sense at all. How did you gain the knowledge to be able to program them in the first place, let alone actually be able to logistically figure out how such a thing could ever possibly work even with programming knowledge at hand? And even putting that aside, how did you create the hardware for and subsequently program the software for a brand new bracelet and secret achievement on a whim as soon as John Lasseter walked through the doors if you didn't intend him to be here? That should have wrecked your plan in an instant. Which, by the way, remember earlier when we were talking about how it makes no sense that this building could possibly stay a secret while extending the olive branch that obviously they did figure out that they're here if the killing game happens at all? Well, now we've arrived at the final episode, and as I said we'd do, we're gonna revisit that. Because now we know that there was not an external enemy that hosted this game. It was hosted from within by Old Guy. So unfortunately, the defense that, well, they did actually find the building, has fallen apart at the seams, and their stupid little squabble from when they were in this room makes absolutely no sense. Wait a minute, how did you even stay awake in that room when the Pokeball was thrown out? You weren't wearing any kind of mask, so how did you stay awake when no one else did? What was your plan gonna be if no one figured out the thing with the monitors and therefore didn't unlock the bracelets? What if they all just killed each other? What if Lasseter was one of the ones who was woken up to commit suicide? No video for you in that case. You assembled a group of people where Makoto, Hina, and Kyoko were the #1 targets who were hated by literally everybody else in the goddamn room, and who are simultaneously the only 3 people smart enough to be able to actually figure out what was going on, and therefore break free of the game so Lasseter can give you his video and you all can escape. What on earth were you thinking? And you may be thinking to yourself, why didn't he just fucking steal the video from him instead of going through all this? And this is an excellent question, my dear viewer. As it turns out, the Steel Samurai asks the same thing. Let's see how Makoto counters the question.
It's not about that. It's about hope, about Nichirai's potential.
What the fuck? What do you mean it's not about that? It's entirely about that. If Old Guy did exactly that from step 1, none of you would have had to be killed and he would have easily gotten the video. It would literally undo the entire show. But here are the writers back at it again telling you, stop thinking about our broken story. And if you didn't want to steal it from him, then how about you just fucking ask him for the video if you were going to hire him anyway? Just walk up to him and ask, hey, can I have your hope video so I can save the world? You hired him for a reason. Presumably it was so that he could use his skills to help you end despair. So why don't you just ask him for the video? Again though, you can still just fucking steal it from him. He's not exactly a bastion of resilience and strength. Also, are you trying to imply that this man was able to single-handedly drag everybody's body down to the underwater replica facility? Okay then, sure thing, show, whatever you say. But most importantly, if Old Guy's motivations were truly benevolent and his only intention was to get that video, then why did you actually put poison in the goddamn bracelets? Hey, remember in 999 when the big reveal was that Akane didn't actually want anyone except for this fucker to die, and that she just needed to do this nonary game so Junpei can be there to save her in the past? I'm not gonna bother dissecting the logic of that yet, but what I will say is, do you know why this motive works so well? Because at the end of the game, when they all get outside and the nightmare finally ends, it is revealed that the bracelets were just bracelets. There were no needles or anything that would have injected poison into their bodies. It was all a deception to get Junpei into the incinerator room so he could save Akane. You can believe that she really was just doing this out of desperation to keep herself alive because she truly never meant to harm anyone, and she took precautions to make sure that didn't happen. But in this stupid show, the bracelets are proven to actually have poison in them. He has helicopters trying to murder Yasuhiro. He has a wrist gun he uses to try to kill the Steel Samurai and Matt. He murdered the entire security staff. Yeah, I don't think I forgot about that shit show. And he put a robot in the lobby, which, if triggered, causes the entire fucking building to collapse. This show depends on you buying the idea that his intentions were nothing but pure-hearted, but that pill is so goddamn hard to swallow considering the mountain of instances where he is actively trying to kill people. None of this makes any fucking sense at all. This is cognitive diarrhea. What dried up sea sponge wrote this narrative vomit and call it a script? So then more soldiers show up, and so to allow Makoto and Hina to escape and stop Lasseter, the Steel Samurai charges headfirst into a squad of soldiers armed with assault rifles and murders all of them with his katana. Somehow. You have guns. Please use them. What are you doing? Oh wait, there we go. They're actually shooting at him now and they're missing?
You missed! How could you miss? It was 3 feet in front of you!
You can't outrun bullets, you witless fuck! They have assault rifles. You're running away from them. They would have shot your ass dead by now. What is this stupid shit? Who wrote this? He then proceeds to shut the door behind him, which somehow blocks the bullets. You do realize this door isn't reinforced, right? Bullets can still fly through. How are you still alive? Why don't you turnips just open the door? What is happening in the script? But just when all seems lost for the Steel Samurai, he grabs the fucking sword out of Athena's chest that he impaled her with earlier and starts dual-wielding katanas. No, you did not mishear me. Let me say that again. The whole reason he stabbed her with the damn sword was because the writers needed him to have a weapon in this room for him to use later. Kill me. If you wanted to have a payoff where something seemingly insignificant at the beginning of the story ends up being the key to victory later in the story, you can do that. But like I said in my Danganronpa 2.5 video, you gotta fucking earn it. You can't just have characters do random ass things like stab dead people in the chest and just leave the sword there because that doesn't make any fucking sense at all. Who wrote this bullshit? And so now that the Steel Samurai has 2 swords, he is suddenly able to effortlessly tear through all the guards. Oh, just kill me now, I swear to God. What bird brain wrote this? We then see Makoto and Hina running to find a way back up to the surface, but they unluckily run across a hallway exposed to 2 soldiers who happen to be randomly aiming their guns in the very direction they were running from, and somehow, despite them having assault rifles and all the time in the world to shoot, they only managed to hit Hina in the leg. How? How did that happen? How is that the only part of her body you managed to hit with your guns? Anyway, they're fucking dead since there's no way Makoto was strong enough or fast enough to help her out of there before the soldiers cornered them. Meanwhile, John Lasseter is climbing out of the building with the rope? Why? How do you have the upper body strength to do this when all you've ever done is sit at your computer and animate? And what happens if you need to rescue someone who doesn't have the upper body strength to pull themselves out? Just crank the rope up yourselves, you dumbasses! What are you doing? Jumping back to Makoto and Hina, they're safe? How? How did you get out of this mess in one piece? You are nowhere near as strong as she is. How could you possibly have successfully carried her away from the battlefield and into a room where no one could find you before the soldiers caught you and killed you? They were right around the corner. All they had to do was just run straight and turn left and you'd be dead. How did you get out of there in time? Wait, where did you get the bandages from? Did you pull them out of your ass when I wasn't looking? What is happening in this show? Who wrote this? And then Makoto tries to reach out to help his partner in crime, but she tells him that it's safer if she stays there, which leads to him promising to come back to her after he's done dealing with the villain.
After I'm through with truth.
Don't make a girl a promise if you know you can't keep it.
Fuck off! Fuck this show! Let's just move on, I'm so sick of this garbage. We jump over to the annex, which is apparently capable of broadcasting to every single screen in the entire world. Wait a second, how are you pinging every single screen? How are TV stations still operational in the damn apocalypse? How is there self-service? How are you gonna do this? What is so special about this annex that allows you unfiltered access to every single screen on the planet? So he plugs his phone into the machine and somehow knows the password to access the computer. No, I don't know how. Don't think about it, you critical thinking criminal, you. He hits the start broadcast button and there's a timer? Why is there a timer preventing you from streaming? Obviously, from the writer's perspective, it's so that our heroes actually have a chance to stop his evil plan, but I'm talking about the logistics of this thing. This makes no goddamn sense. Imagine if you pressed the start streaming button on OBS and then had to wait 30 fucking minutes before your broadcast would actually begin. And to be clear, the timer isn't counting down how long it takes for his video to upload to the system. We see that happen on the screen, and it's an almost instantaneous process. He literally pushes the start streaming button, and the screen just says, nah, you gotta wait half a fucking hour before you can begin. What is this? Who wrote this? Who wrote that? Who put that in the script? Then we cut back to the Future Foundation where we see the Steel Samurai facing down an army of soldiers armed with assault rifles once again, and they start shooting at him and he runs toward the bullets. What are you doing? What is this show? How are you not dead? You are charging people with guns. Do you know what guns do? Do you fuckers know how bullets work? He should be dead right now. What is this dumbass script? Before the episode closes out with credits, we get one final recap scene in the fourth wall theater where Junko recaps the events of the entire fucking series up until this point. Beat by beat, character by character, event by event. I am not fucking kidding you. Junko recaps the entire series in the final moments before the grand finale in her stupid, "So like, this is totally what happened and all that?" voice, and it just makes you want to die. You have no faith in our memory. Just fucking admit it already. Publicly admit that you think your fanbase is comprised of nothing but pea-brained morons. Because this is what watching this makes you feel like. They think you have the memory of a goldfish, the attention span of a hummingbird, and the intelligence of a toaster. It is so beyond insulting to have to sit here and watch Junko re-explain the series to you as if you didn't just watch everything that happened. But as if that's not bad enough, she throws this little zinger in there.
Hold up! How's that not just another form of brainwashing? Excellent question. In any event...
Fuck off! Stop doing this! Having the characters acknowledge the stupidity of your plot does not suddenly absolve it of its stupidity! It just means that you don't care enough about the integrity of your script to actually fix the glaring issues with it beyond having the villain of the Spear arc say, "Oh my god, that's like totally a major problem. Anyway, moving on." Fuck off! Fuck you and your dumbass writing team!
Get over yourself, slut. We're dead.
I fucking hate this show. So then Yasuhiro charges in to save the day, only he fails colossally, and Bikuya is right on his tail with an army of non-mind-controlled soldiers? Why are you not shooting your weapons? How is this group of soldiers not being mind-controlled when the leader was ordered to transmit the video to everyone? And most importantly, how did you survive the building collapsing on top of you? A building literally crumbled to pieces all around you, chuckle fucks, and you're somehow still alive? Do I even need to say it at this point? This makes no goddamn sense. Who wrote this? And thus ends the future arc. We're so close to the end. We're almost there. Just a little bit more and then we're home free. One more episode. The Hope arc. The culmination of everything the Danganronpa series has built up for 6 years at this point. No turning back now. We've come this far. Let's finish this fight. Prepare for the script to start self-destructing. So the Future Foundation calls in an emergency backup squad to drop into the battlefield from the sky. And then we see that Hajime is in the underwater replica building with Athena's dead body. Wait a minute. What the fuck? How did you get here? What are you doing here? Remember the last time we saw Hajime in the future timeline? He was on Jabberwock Island facing down an army of battleships that was ready to fucking kill them all? Yeah, well, we somehow went from that unwinnable situation to him at the Future Foundation building, proudly proclaiming to the audience that he managed to revive all the people who were killed off in the second game. I'd react more negatively to this, but I already kind of let out my frustrations in my Danganronpa 2.5 video, so instead I'm just going to calmly ask the question of, what in the flying fuck? Stop it! Stop doing this! You keep using this trick whenever you write yourself into a corner. You keep teeing up an action scene only to cut away, forget about it entirely, and then just cut to the aftermath. There is literally no way Hajime could have possibly fended off this army of ships. Or maybe there was, but we'll never know because they never showed us! The most recent event we have to work with is Danganronpa 2.5 when we see everyone boarding the boat. But that's useless because we still don't know how we got from here to here. Who wrote this? Then we get the super epic shot where our heroes are presented back to back across 2 different locations and the logo is revealed with both protagonists aggressively pointing. So apparently after Yasuhiro and Bikuya showed up to save the day, Makoto fucked off to the annex to stop John Lasseter and everyone else stayed behind? Why? Why would you not want Makoto to have all the help that he possibly could? Yeah, Bikuya sent in the ODSTs or whatever, but you're still leaving the fate of your friend in the hands of some random dudes. Obviously, Hina can't be there because she's in no condition to travel anywhere, which is such fucking bullshit that she's rendered immobile minutes before the climax of the damn series. But seriously? You two aren't gonna help him? What the fuck? Anyway, Makoto leads his ODST squad across the bridge to the annex, which is being guarded by a massive army of soldiers that shoot at him the second they approach the building, and so they dive to cover. And despite the fact that they are completely behind cover and can't step out without being instantly shot to death, they not only don't let go of the trigger to conserve ammo and just keep firing their guns, but just stand still. What are you doing? Surround them! Divide and conquer! Send one team to go this way and another team to go this way so you can corner and capture them! Or kill them, since that's apparently what he actually wants you to do. Why are you just standing around like witless gnomes? Move your asses! But nonetheless, the odds seem insurmountable. Makoto, a symbol of hope, is facing down an army he can't possibly hope to conquer alone. But just when all seems lost, a familiar voice comes over the intercom and lets everyone know that help is on the way. And so the heroes that we all watched die in the last installment of the series come back into the story one by one to show off their unique abilities as they all work together to save the fucking day. Oh wait, this came out later. Did anything come before? Aha! On second thought, no, I didn't give this a hard enough time in my Danganronpa 2.5 video. Let's break this shit down. First and foremost, how in the name of Monokuma are you even here right now? How did you fight out the armada of boats sent to kill you? More importantly, do you remember at the end of the second game where it was made crystal clear that it's literally impossible to revive them? Yeah, well, there's absolutely no explanation for this. Nothing. How are they brought back to life when the second game made it crystal clear that that's impossible? Why not revive the cast of the first game while you're at it? Bring them all back to life. Let's have a big old revival party. You clearly don't give a shit about nullifying previous events, since bringing everyone back does exactly that. Forcing the characters to make an incredibly difficult choice between whether they hold on to their memories but release Junko out of the simulation or stop her at the cost of sacrificing their personalities. Invalidated. Fuyuhiku, Sonya, Kazuichi, Akane, and Hajime have all retained their memories and personalities even though they shut down the simulation and stopped Junko. The death scenes for every single character, the heart-wrenching execution sequences, and the trauma of discovering the body of someone you care deeply about, invalidated. Every single death was painted in the most emotionally harrowing way possible. They spent a painstaking amount of effort trying to make you feel for every single character, and gave them all their own individual spotlight when it was their time to die. The goal was to elicit a heartbreaking reaction out of all of their deaths. So when you see every single one of them instantly brought back onto the screen, with absolutely no care for the sacrifices they made or the time that you put into trying to make the player cry at their deaths, it results in the most cheap bullshit imaginable. Every single substantive choice this game made, or dichotomy it presented, has been completely and utterly thrown out the window just to have a hollow fan service Avengers Assemble moment enabled by cheap bullshit and nothing more. And dare I even analyze the individual characters' introductions? Tanaka literally summons a fucking lightning strike onto his position. I'm not fucking kidding here. How in the world did Kazuichi find the time to build an armada of self-destructing mini-Mario robots between the end of the second game and the time you arrived at this location?
Hey, it's Justin Bieber!
Justin Bieber? What the fuck? What was that line? Somebody actually fucking wrote that and put it into the script. Akane can stop knives with her teeth now? You have flame breath? What the fuck? Are you a dragon now? What show am I watching? Fuck this fucking script! Mikon has a fucking big ass syringe. Why is your syringe this big? What the Ibuki? She literally kills everyone with bad music. That was a joke when I said that she was gonna kill everyone with bad music in Danganronpa 2.5. That wasn't a fucking suggestion. And then someone's about to snipe Ibuki, but a Mahiru steps in front of the gun and flashes her camera. What is happening anymore? I can't. Okay. Let's calm down a second. We've had our fun. Nonsensical bullshit aside, just look at it from the purely superficial level. You want to judge this strictly from the perspective of, I want to see the Danganronpa Avengers assemble? Fine, I'll humor you. Let's do that. You have everyone from the second game except for Chiaki, because fuck you, that's why. But you only have one member from the first game, and he does approximately fuck all. You don't get to see the dynamics of both groups bounce off each other. You don't get moments where characters across both casts interact with each other in unique and interesting ways. You don't get to see the cast combine their talents to help save the day. The entirety of the first cast is still dead with no hope for revival, with the only survivors bunkering down at the Future Foundation building, and Makoto sitting behind a stupid little rock doing sweet fuck all. The second game's cast doesn't even stand together as a unified force during the battle. They're all off on their own doing their own little random things. You can't even rip off correctly on the most superficial of levels. Phineas and Ferb did this better with their movie in 2011, with every character throughout the series and every single one of their inventions being used in creative ways to help defeat alternate dimension Dr. Doofenshmirtz and his army of robots. Phineas and Ferb did this better than you hacks. What are you doing? Moving on, one portal scene later, the second game's cast led by Hajime all corner John Lasseter at the annex and used the power of words to convince him that brainwashing people into feeling hopeful is no different than brainwashing them into feeling despair. And my brain just wants to explode because all you have to do is just tell him to adjust his program so that it just undoes the brainwashing. Just create a video that nullifies the other one. You don't have to brainwash people into the opposite extreme to counter the current extreme. What the fuck?
Nanami was real. I can't pretend like she never existed.
Then why the fuck didn't you say anything about her at the end of the second game? Remember? When you were yammering on about how Chiaki was never a real person and therefore you all won't remember her and therefore it will be like she never existed at all? Well, that's fucking meaningless now because this show confirms that she actually was a real person all this time and yet you never fucking said anything. Gee, it's almost like this series retconned itself into making Chiaki real just so they could fucking kill her again. No, I'm still not over that shit. Anyway, they tell him to join their team and then in case you thought the show wasn't blatant enough, the color of the sky changes from despair-inducing blood red to hopeful and optimistic pink. Real fucking subtle. And so he prematurely stops his Twitch broadcast and thus disaster is averted and it is revealed that Makoto was standing outside the building the whole time. Why? Why aren't you in there helping them? Oh, what the fuck ever. We're so close to the end. I just want to be done with this shit already. Then we get this groan-inducing, cringe-worthy shot where Hajime and Makoto pass by each other and give each other a reassuring nod like, hello there, fellow protagonist. And you just want to die. Then we get another groan-inducing moment where Nagito Kamaeda meets Makoto Naegi. And you just wanna fucking die.
We share the same good luck. No, wait, that's not right. Yours far outstrips mine.
Wait a minute, what? Why do you care about Makoto's luck? You had a whole scene where you told Hajime about how you don't consider luck to be a real talent. Why are you in awe of his luck? Wasn't hope the thing that you admired about him? You know, wanting to be the ultimate hope for his classmates? Did you fuckers actually play these games? No, seriously, did you? Because it seems like you've been making a concentrated, almost calculated and scientific effort to shit all over them constantly. Or is this just another day in the life of the walking contradictions, perpetually shifting personality? Either way, it's bullshit. You're welcome to pick whichever one you prefer. So then Makoto reunites with the survivors from the first game and they just decided they wanted to set out the final battle of the story. And then we get to watch a video made by the second game's cast and I just...
Your perfect ideal world. Your hero saved at the last minute by some deus ex machina.
Where in the holy hell is your self-awareness, you absolute cretins? Anyway, it turns out that this video is created by the Remnants of Despair to take the credit for the killing game so that the Future Foundation doesn't get bad PR. What? Did you actually just say that? Did you really put that into your script? Did you fuckers think about the implications of this before you wrote it? You made it such that the Remnants of Despair, the people that were rehabilitated by Makoto to become a part of the Future Foundation, took the credit for the killing game to shift blame away from the Future Foundation. You absolute absolute barnyard animal. Do you ever think about literally anything? And as if the second game needed to be nullified even further, you've now made it so that in the eyes of the rest of the world, those students are the evil remnants of despair who caused everyone to kill each other, which is the exact same reputation they had at the start of that game, and what Makoto risked everything to change by placing them in the Neo World program. Stop it. Stop doing this. Stop invalidating everything the other games work toward. Get your grubby little fingers off those games. And who is this announcement even for? The game wasn't being broadcast, so nobody outside of the Future Foundation would have ever even known that there was a killing game until they saw this video, and the people inside the Future Foundation would obviously know that they were on the island the whole time, and they have the knowledge of who really started this whole mess. What is the point of this? What are you doing?
Thank you, but I didn't do anything.
Yeah, no shit, and it's what's royally pissing me off. Now it's time for So Long, but first we'll sing just one more song as we watch the cast of the second game chilling out on their boat hanging out with their friends. And Hajime, who feels alone because he never really spent all that much time with the others in the real world, is feeling the big sad until he imagines that Chiaki is standing right next to him. Fucking hell. His imagination of Chiaki tells him thank you for not letting her sacrifice go to waste. But Chiaki is dead. She's not really here. She's nothing more than a figment of his imagination. So he's literally telling himself that he did a good and thanking himself. Essentially telling him he has redeemed himself for the actions he took when he was the big bad. Stop ripping off other stories, especially when the other stories in question are complete fucking garbage as well. Then Lasseter drops his phone into the ocean and you're supposed to feel proud of him for overcoming his desire to constantly brainwash everyone. You know, symbolism and all that. But all I'm sitting here thinking is, why the fuck did you do that? You just threw away a $700 piece of technology for a symbolic shot. Don't do this shit. Fucking stop it. Stop shoving a theme or piece of symbolism down my throat at the cost of the logic of the scene. You don't have to get rid of your phone to stop brainwashing people. Just delete the videos. You literally just threw away $700 into the ocean. What is wrong with you? And so we finally arrive at the ending of the show, if you can even fucking call it that, because what the fuck is this shit? This is it. This is the grand finale of the Danganronpa franchise. And what do we get as our conclusion to the series? We get the remnants of despair riding off into the sunset on their boat, which I guess they hijacked from the Future Foundation on Jabberwock Island, and the Steel Samurai telling Makoto to be the ultimate hope. Where are they going? What happens to them? Are they just gonna roam the world as the remnants of despair? Are they gonna help fix the world? Because if they do, then that's gonna start to confuse the hell out of people after that stupid video they made. I'm not kidding. This is the final scene of the show. Just the boat riding off into the sunset while Makoto watches them disappear over the horizon. Are you fucking kidding me? Again! You did this shit again! You pulled this exact same bullshit with Zero Escape. Fuck off. Stop doing this. Stop building up these stories that threaten the entire world with intricately interwoven plot threads from all over the place, and character arcs that interweave with each other, contrasted against the gargantuan world-ending stakes, and then dropping all of it like none of it ever happened right when you get to the fucking finish line. What about the robots that are terrorizing Toa City? They were clearly still active after Monica fucked off to space. Are you gonna do anything about that? What about the war between kids and adults? The mind-controlled children? The genocidal adults? How about actually giving us a reunion between Makoto and Kamaru so we can actually see the two siblings reunite? How about a scene where Hina finds out that her brother is dead and she has to grapple with that emotional weight? No, fuck you. You're getting a scene where the two protagonists do the protagonist stare instead. Also, I'm kind of burying the lead here. The world isn't fixed yet. This show blatantly ripped a whole lot of shit right out of Zero Escape. But if there's one thing you absolutely should not have ripped, it was the absolute dead stop of an ending. That game abandoned the conflict established by the second game and introduced some random fucking penguin that had nothing to do with anything, only to say at the end, well, that was a fun little adventure, but there's still a religious fanatic that's gonna destroy the world, so go fix it. And then the credits rolled. You did the same thing here. The world is still in a disastrous state. Do not let the pink sky fool you. This show invented a million new villains and put all the attention on them, made no effort to throw our characters against the conflict they've been fighting since the first fucking game, and then after you defeated the new villain you invented, you pretend like it's time for credits. No! Fuck off! Despair is still running rampant. People are still brainwashed by Junko's video. Your work is not done yet. This isn't an ending. You cannot just drop all the shit and then end. But then, fucking then, as if this show wasn't done kicking you in the balls, as if we haven't already suffered enough, we have one more scene to watch. Get that pillow from episode 10 ready. Mahiru asks Mikon what she's holding in her hands, and it turns out that it is an antidote for the poison in the bracelets made by Corona that serves to delay the effects of it and put you in a coma long enough for someone to come help you. Meaning that if anybody were to, say, violate the secret achievement, they would still be able to survive. Get that fucking pillow ready, because you did not mishear me, and your guess is spot on accurate. Because of this fucking antidote, Kyoko is revived from the dead. What the actual fuck is wrong with you? You just utterly annihilated all of the emotional value of the only exceptional scene in your entire goddamn show. And big surprise, it doesn't even make any sense! When did Mikon get the time to go back to the Future Foundation to find Kyoko and revive her? How did Corona make an antidote for the specific type of poison in the braces when she couldn't have possibly determine what type it was? When did she even find the time to do it when her whole story was spent trying to eat Veruca and boyfriend as a demonic lion? And even if she didn't make it during the killing game, which Nagito heavily implies, and it was made beforehand, then holy fuck, how lucky that you just so happen to have this exact antidote for this exact type of poison on your person at the exact time you needed it. How did Kyoko even get this? Did Corona give it to her? Because I doubt that shit very much considering how everyone treated these three from the moment they walked through the doors. Did he steal it from her? Because if so, how? When? The only chance she would have had would have been when she was examining her dead body, but in that case, how did she steal it without the others seeing? And why didn't Corona use it on herself so she didn't die? And why the fuck didn't you tell Makoto and Hina that you weren't actually gonna die so they wouldn't be scarred for life by watching you lie limp on the floor? Wait a minute, how didn't they realize you were dead? The antidote puts you in a coma, but you can still breathe when you're in a coma. How did they not see that? How did they not immediately realize that you weren't actually dead? None of this makes any sense. Who wrote this? Oh, just fuck it all. We skip ahead to the future where it's all just fine now. The show cut off the main action in a state where the world was still overrun with despair, skipped ahead several months, and now magically everything is back to normal and the world is happy again. I hate this fucking show. Do you have even the vaguest idea of how stories are told? Fucking kill me. Yasuhiro is doing Yasuhiro things, Bikuya is doing Bikuya things, Kamaru hands Toko and Hina a water bottle, and then Kyoko reveals that Makoto is the new principal of the school that the title explicitly stated would be ending and not rebranding, but fuck it, I guess. And now they can all live happily ever after, and finally, after 24 episodes and almost 10 hours of pure, unbridled torture, this nightmare of a show finally fucking ends.
Well, that was worth the wait.
Yes, it was.
No, it wasn't. Shut the fuck up. This show wasn't worth jack shit. Who wrote this chumbucket excrement excuse of a story and submitted it as a finished script? This was not worth suffering through Ultra Despair Girls. This was not worth 10 hours of my life only to build to a conclusion that feels more rushed and anticlimactic than a geeky version's first time in the sack. What in the holiest of fucks did I just endure? What is it with Spike Chunsoft and their inability to finish trilogies well? They pulled this exact same bullshit with the Zero Escape trilogy. They set the stakes through the roof at the end of the second game with two clearly defined casts of characters they merged together, and then they threw it all away with an entirely new team of idiots and an entirely new conflict, only to hand-wave the way past all of it and just say, they won, game over! I mean, I guess at the very least they actually won this time instead of just saying, I don't know, maybe they'll win. But when neither story puts in the legwork to arrive at their respective conclusions, it's ultimately a distinction without a difference. Is it because you only had 10 hours to work with as opposed to the 40-hour time frame the first two games gave you? Because if that's the excuse, then the obvious question to ask is, why exactly did this have to be a show and not a game? What about the series couldn't have been made possible through the medium of a video game? Well, as it turns out, we have the answer. The reason the writer chose to conclude the Danganronpa story in the form of an anime, not a video game, is because, and I'm not fucking kidding here, they might not have been able to pull off the more serious things they planned, and that it would be too painful for the students of Host Peak Academy to kill each other again. What the fuck do you mean? I don't even know which point to tackle first. They both make no sense. You can't tackle serious subjects in a video game. Really? Am I hearing from the same people that made this game and that wrote this dialogue? Are you fucking kidding me? You fucks are gonna be the arbiter of what subjects can and can't be tackled in a video game? And I'm sorry, did I read that correctly? Too painful for the students to kill each other again? What is this verbal diarrhea? Did you really just say that while justifying the existence of a show where every single character is constantly fighting and trying to murder each other? In something that Monokuma explicitly refers to as a killing game? Do you have any idea what story you wrote? Do you know what happened in your show? Oh wait, is the reason why they had to make it a show because they're tackling two different storylines simultaneously? Well, I suppose that makes sense. After all, there's never been any video game in the history of mankind that split the narrative between two different— No, shut the fuck up, that's so fucking stupid! The amount of non-linear style game narratives or games with 2, 3, hell, try 8 different perspectives all meshing together to tell one overarching story is so vast, it's honestly kind of impressive how fucking wrong you are. I'm starting to think that these developers haven't actually played any games other than their own and the Ace Attorney games. What are you clowns doing over there? Does anybody on the Danganronpa team have a single functioning brain cell? Apollo Justice, I am so sorry. Your script makes absolutely no sense, and you heartlessly, almost maliciously assassinated Phoenix and Emma's characters, but at least your bullshit was self-contained. At least it didn't contaminate the rest of the series because Dual Destinies and Spirit of Justice systematically fixed everything that you broke. But there is no fixing this. It's done. The story is over. There is no magic 5th part to the story that's gonna fix it all. This is the end of the road. And ultimately, that is why this show has pissed me off more than any big doggo ever could. Because this franchise deserved a proper finale. I've gone on several rants during my LPs talking about the flaws and logical gaps of the Danganronpa stories. Because of that, you may think that I hate the first 2 games, but I don't. They both have a whole lot of stupid moments in logical writing, but that doesn't mean that they're irredeemable pieces of filth, and it certainly doesn't mean that I hated playing through them. If there's one thing that those games absolutely knocked out of the ballpark, it was their emphasis on characters. Not every one of them was someone you'd want to be your bestest friend in the whole wide world, but the majority of the second game's cast specifically was the result of a palpable effort to create people you want to spend time with, people you want to get to know, people you want to bond with and whose backstories you want to learn and understand. Their gameplay often missed the mark, the mysteries often had more failures than successes, the lack of faith in the player's intelligence was insulting, and their final payoffs were complete and utter nonsense. But the one thing that saved both of these games was the consistent emphasis on characters and strengthening your relationships with as many of them as you possibly could. My favorite parts of both of those games were the daily life segments, the time when you got to slow down and explore the school at your leisure, shop for presents you think your friends might love based on their individual preferences, and get to know them all on a deeper level, comforting Hina when she opens up about her insecurities, learning about Akane's horrific experiences being sexually harassed, helping Chiaki become more comfortable around other people, and on a broader scale, just the time you spent exploring the world around you to your heart's desire, alongside a cast of characters that they clearly wanted you to adore in their brightest moments and mourn for in their darkest hours. Even Ultra Despair Girls managed to pull us off with developing Kamaru from a terrified high school girl to a fierce and capable survivor alongside Toko, who has learned to let down her guard and make a friend out of Kamaru as the two stand together to face the world as a badass team. It's the one consistent element that permeates every single game in the series, but this show just didn't even care to try. They threw a gaggle of new characters onto the screen and didn't spend any time developing them. Character motivations come out of nowhere and change on a dime whenever the story runs out of places to go. They just show Veruca and Boyfriend interacting as if we've known them for years, but we haven't. We have no idea who these people are, and yet in spite of the sheer amount of screen time that they receive, they get absolutely no character development to complement it. On that note, why are you dedicating so much screen time to them instead of the characters we actually care about? Yasuhiro was dragged onto the screen whenever they wanted you to laugh, only to be subsequently shoved aside immediately afterwards, despite the fact that there's no way he should have survived any of this shit. Bakuya showed up whenever the plot needed him. Komoa and Toko get one stupid bath scene, and then this insanity unfolds, in which Monica fucks off to space and then the show forgets she exists. Then they all just completely disappear from the story, except for the one scene in the epilogue when Komaru hands Toko a water bottle. Woohoo. The only scenes in which there's genuine development are the ones between Makoto and Hina, Kyoko and Makoto, Hajime and Chiaki, and the Naegi siblings. But these two only get one scene to slow down and talk as friends. The emotional value of her death is immediately nullified just for the sake of a cheap cliffhanger. Kyoko's death scene, her sacrifice, and the preceding conversation are nullified by the end of the show, and there's absolutely no payoff for either the Naegi siblings or Hajime and Chiaki. These two never reunite and have a heartwarming moment to share as brother and sister, and these two do not share anywhere near enough screen time together for this scene to have the emotional weight that it desperately needs to. The only resolution they get doesn't even count because it's not even Chiaki in this scene. It's just Hajime talking to a figment of his imagination and telling himself that he did a good. Pathetic. And don't even get me started on what this show did to Chiaki as a whole. They brought her back just so they could kill her again even though she already had her death scene. She already went through the scene where she sacrificed herself to save her friends. But they invented a real person named Chiaki despite the fact that the second game made it crystal clear that she was never a real person and was just an AI, just so they can kill her for the second time in a row and for equally moronic reasons. Chiaki is mercilessly executed twice throughout the Danganronpa series, and both times is due to a series of events that has absolutely no logical through line. And her final scene is utterly meaningless because it's just Hajime talking to himself, and that's it. None of the other characters in the second game get even the slightest bit of development, despite the despair arc allegedly being all about how these beacons of hope fell to despair and destroyed the world. And all that isn't even mentioning the fact that they completely invalidated every death from the second game, as well as the two deaths from within their own show just to bait your emotions. They were both fake-outs designed to tug on your heartstrings only so they can be revived in the end through utter bullshit. Fuck off. And even if we just focus on the plot alone, nothing here runs with any cause and effect. The entire focus of the future arc is all about the killing game, and yet there's almost no time spent on it. It's just a Steel Samurai, or whoever the current villain is, trying to kill everyone, and then every once in a while someone dies and then they just move right along. There is such a massive disconnect between the actions of the Steel Samurai and his motivations because he cannot quantify them without basing his arguments on blatantly false information either through malicious misrepresentation or sheer stupidity. And the actual mastermind makes even less sense with the glaring question of how in the name of fuck did he build an underwater replica base without anybody finding out, including the Steel Samurai who was the head of fucking construction. And why was there not a team of people being sent to help you as soon as the attack began when there were clearly people standing by and reporting information about the fucking attack? And this isn't even talking about Old Guy's motivation for the killing game in the first place. Hey, bumblefuck. Why didn't you just ask for or steal the video instead of putting everyone's lives at risk when there was even a slightest possibility that they wouldn't figure out the truth behind the killing game and escape with their lives? Especially when you assembled a team of idiots bent on murdering the only intelligent people in the room. Why were you trying to shoot and kill Matt and the Steel Samurai with your magic wrist gun? Why did you have a helicopter trying to kill Yasuhiro? Why did you put a robot in the lobby that triggers the destruction of the entire building? Why did you put poison in the bracelets at all if your goals were strictly benevolent? How do they even even work? How would a bracelet detect if someone steps on your shadow when it's the only metric you have to determine if a secret achievement is completed or not? Why is Monica here? Literally, what was the point? You have another bullshit cliffhanger bait where it turns out she's controlling McQueen, only for her to play no role in the story whatsoever except to dick around with Monokuma, which I don't even know how she did it if she wasn't responsible for the killing game, since it is revealed that all the Monokuma videos are pre-recorded, yet we know definitively that Monica's avatar is a real-time feed. How does this fucking work? And again, why is Monica here at all? Oh, it's because she just wanted to check it out. You know, curiosity. Not like she had a city to be trying to take over or anything. Oh, by the way, how did she even control this army when she doesn't have the remote controller anymore? Let alone make them all in the first place when the factory was destroyed at the end of Ultra Despair Girls? How did she even know what Kyoko's secret achievement was? How could she possibly have obtained that information? Speaking of the killing game, the game rules are completely nonsensical, and the explanations that this show tries to spit out to justify them are laughable at best and brain-rotting at worst. The show treats the reveal that the victims killed themselves like some ingenious plot twist when anyone with half a brain spotted this immediately, considering the circumstances of the deaths in the killing game itself. Aside from the insane predictability of the twist, part of the intrigue of Danganronpa has always been finding out the why behind the killings. The bone-chilling thought of why a student would be compelled to murder someone else in cold blood, let alone rob two of their fellow classmates of their lives. They didn't always hit the nail on the head in that department, but they always at least made an effort. Even if they bungled the execution, there was always an attempt at providing genuine motivations for the killers. But these deaths happen just because people need to die for the story to keep moving, rather than for any character-driven reasons outside of Kyoko's death. But that one is completely irrelevant because her sacrifice was nullified by the Hope arc. Not to mention the fact that this whole nightmare could have been avoided entirely if the old guy just had the brain capacity to ask for the stupid video, or straight up steal it from him, which, again, the show points out would have been a valid option. Old guy's plan was literally just to spread hope throughout the world, which he could have easily done through civil means, and yet he chose to host a killing game that wiped out almost every single member of this board, and ran the risk of Makoto, Hina, Kyoko, and John Lasseter dying. Why would you ever risk that? His survival is a pivotal part of your plan. Why would you not just ask him for the fucking video, you dead whale? And over on the despair side, what a colossal fuck-up of a prequel series. You go out of your way to show how Hajime became selected for the Kamakura project and how he fell to despair, only to present reasoning for both of those things that make absolutely no sense with the events and character motivations established by your own show. How did Kyoko not figure out what was going on when she was actively working on the case, and why does the show tell us that she wasn't on the case when we know full well that she was? Why was Nagito booted out of the story? I mean, don't get me wrong, the less of Nagito we see, the better, but usually when a character disappears from the main action for a bit, there's usually a reason why that happens, but here he just vanishes into thin air, survives a plane crash, and takes a shower in the Oasis for some fucking reason, and then comes back as if nothing ever happened at all. Just what the fuck? Why the hell did you make Shaki a real person? The second game in Danganronpa 2.5 make it crystal clear that she was never real, and yet all of a sudden she is? No, I'm still not over this. This shit makes my blood boil. How did you have the memory data to recreate the Warriors of Hope in Danganronpa 2.5, but not recreate Shaki, despite the fact that this show establishes her as an angel that was the sole motivator for every single student in this class, and the glue that held you all together? I don't know, man. It seems like you invented her just because you realized she's the best character you've ever written, and you needed a reason for people to care about this side of the story, only to bait her death for the second time based on an utterly bullshit chain of events. And need I even mention that the final chance they have to stop Junko is wasted because Matt doesn't want to admit his feelings for the Steel Samurai, and that he doesn't just fucking tackle her as she's walking away? Things just happen by pure chance, even when it comes to characters that aren't given the arbitrary ultimate lucky student label. Impossible things constantly happen. Your brain is perpetually ready to explode because there's hardly a solitary moment where there isn't at least one element of the story that is allergic to making sense, and the world building is contradicted by both itself and by the previous games and novels in the series. Ultra Despair Girls established that Monica created the zombie apocalypse because Junko motivated her, and this show doesn't make even the slightest effort to explain how they met up. On the subject of Junko Enoshima, her character was annihilated in this show. A character that started out as someone who literally wants to watch the world burn, who doesn't crave the destruction itself but craves the rush she gets from physically seeing everyone succumb to despair, has been turned into someone who causes random destruction and chaos for fun, with no care whatsoever for how it affects the people around her. A character that was once presented with an aura of intelligence and intimidation has been replaced with a psychopathic torture porn administrator. The first two games, and even Ultra Despair Girls, showed her off as a character capable of getting to the students' darkest, most personal fears and weaknesses, and manipulating them to her side. But that was all thrown out the window in favor of telling Izuru, "Hey, check out this mass murder," and he was like, "Cool, I'm in." And then just straight up brainwashing the other students, which then proceeds to make the entire first game irrelevant because if she had the technology to do so, then there was no reason whatsoever for her to do the killing game in the first place. Congratulations, you deranged Teletubbies. You made a terrible villain even worse than she already was. It's honestly kind of impressive, but you did not need to make her character worse, guys. She was already complete shit. On that note, with the exception of the introduction of brainwashing technology, almost nothing in this entire series has any significant impact on anything that happens in the future arc, and I can think of no better way to demonstrate that than the fact that the school was literally blown up by a bomb and has no impact on anything. Oh, and speaking of brainwashing, what complete and total dumbassery. There is absolutely no consistency with how this shit works. Do you need verbal commands to assist you or not? Why would you not make all your messages function independently without human intervention required? Why did you have so many many brainwashing videos pre-installed on your phone? Did you come here prepared to take over the world? Because it seems pretty clear that you became a villain on the spot instead of having a logical build-up, and yet you just have an evil villain starter kit in your back pocket for some fucking reason. How did Junko go from having a video that required lobotomy to function properly to being able to control the whole world over the course of a single episode when the person designing the technology for you had already run away? They didn't put any thought whatsoever into explaining any of this shit, which is a pretty big deal when the entire Danganronpa timeline is set into motion by his anime obsession turned brainwashing talent. That's not an exaggeration, by the way. It's not enough that they blitzed past the small bits of character work for him that they absolutely should have developed more. They had to boil the entire tragedy down to the fact that some kid has an anime obsession. That's literally the cause of all of this. Every event that leads to the downfall of the world can be traced back to an anime obsession, and everything that happens after that runs on nothing but contrivance and characters making the stupidest decisions imaginable, or having the spatial awareness of a squirrel. For as flawed as the world building was previously, the concept of what exactly the tragedy was and what happened to cause it, how it came about, how Junko came to corrupt the entire class, that was all up in the air. They had complete freedom for how they wanted to tie this all together. The possibilities were endless. But no, they just threw their hands up into the air and went, I don't know, magic remote, I guess. And don't even try to blame this on the games. Speaking as someone who has made no attempt to conceal the flaws with this franchise, the simple fact that the world building of the first two games was busted doesn't mean it was impossible to fix. Apollo Justice utterly annihilated the world of Ace Attorney thanks to way too many issues to list here. But Dual Destinies and Spirit of Justice just barely managed to pull the series back together and drag this rotting, sunken ship back up from down below, and salvage the broken universe, turning it back into something phenomenal along the way. A good writer can make a great story out of the stupidest of concepts, and I would reference the Lego movie as an example of this. A movie about literal Lego pieces? How could that ever be good? Well, it turns out, all you have to do is hire competent writers. The writers of this anime weren't screwed over because of the writing decisions made by the games. They were certainly in a rough spot, and to extend an olive branch, if you hired me to write the conclusion to this story, the first thing I want to say is, by the way, fuck you guys for putting me in this position and leaving me with a spaghetti mess of a world that I have to fix. But it wasn't impossible. It could have been fixed. They could have had a good reason for how Junko manipulated the students. They could have found an organic way to weave Ultra Despair Girls into the main conflicts. They could have established a logical chain of events that would reasonably lead to the biggest, most awful, most tragic event in human history. They could have salvaged the world and brought all the characters and plotlines together into a satisfying conclusion. But they just didn't. They didn't even make a half-assed effort to craft an engaging cast of characters. They didn't bother to craft mysteries that make sense. Hell, you can barely even call them mysteries with how little time the show spent on the actual killing game itself. They didn't attempt to fix the world building in the slightest. In fact, they proceeded to make it much, much worse. They irreparably damaged the story of the first game with the introduction of brainwashing technology that is straight up just never used throughout its runtime. They completely nullified the deaths of the second game by reviving every single one of them, just so they can try to assemble all the Danganronpa Avengers without actually assembling them, and then undoing Makoto's efforts to turn them to the good side by having them convince the world that they're the evil remnants of despair. They made Ultra Despair Girls into an even bigger waste of time than it already was, by literally ejecting the villain of that game into space because she just got bored of the story, and completely ignoring every other loose thread throughout that game. And they couldn't even craft a satisfying conclusion to the franchise on the most superficial of levels. That's 3 for 3, everyone. All 3 Danganronpa games fucking annihilated by this nightmare feel of a TV show. The games were not flawless, trust me. I've made it no secret that I have major bones to pick with all of them, especially this garbage heap. But I still cared about these characters with every fiber of my being. I didn't give the series a fair shot when I first started playing it last year, and when I came back to finish it for 2021, I ended up genuinely looking forward to seeing what was going to happen next every time I sat down to record. Even in spite of all their flaws, I would still recommend the first 2 games to everyone because I adored spending time with these characters. I loved getting to know the ins and outs of each location and experiencing the ups and downs of this crazy adventure alongside everyone we've come to know and love. But I took that for granted. This show made me realize just how much I cared about this world and the characters within it. It made me realize how invested I was in seeing how the story was going to end, and how curious I was to see the state of the world and how we got to the point that we did. What happened to corrupt the classmates, how they would tie together all these different stories, how our heroes were going to end despair and restore the world to a place filled with hope. And they fucked it up. They fucked it all without any care in the world, and essentially told me that my investment was worth nothing. That's twice in a row that you've done this, Spike Chunsoft. Twice in a row that you've taken every plot thread and character a series established and built toward, and tossed them all out the fucking window like it was nothing. It makes you appreciate the good stories even more. The stories that honor the groundwork its predecessors laid out. The stories that continue the concepts, the stories, and the characters that they established previously, in a way that is endearing for the audience and respectful to the work that came before, and bring it all together into a conclusion that either leaves you grinning ear to ear with satisfaction, crying your eyes out, or maybe a little bit of both. compared against this absolute dumpster fire that proceeded to shit all over every single solitary thing that they worked toward for 6 years as if they're directly telling you to go fuck yourselves. After almost 100 hours of bonding with these characters and learning about this world across 3 games of varying quality, to arrive at this complete and utter dead stop of an ending without any substantive build that felt like the biggest kick to the balls I could have ever imagined. And I hate that for the rest of my life, anytime I want to replay the Danganronpa games, I'll always have the lingering thought in the back of my head that it all amounts to the most rushed and unsatisfactory conclusion to a story since Zero Escape Zero Time Dilemma. This series deserved a proper finale, but all it got was a constantly hemorrhaging script that sought to bait the characters' deaths only to undo them, nullify the events of the entire series, and completely and utterly annihilate any sense of cogency that this world used to have oh so long ago, resulting in a story that doesn't even deserve the most basic title of being completely average in every way. Go fuck yourselves, you soulless, deceitful waffle irons. Well, that was a fucking nightmare. In case you couldn't tell, this show royally pissed me off. It started out as something that I could laugh at because of how utterly ridiculous it was, but it took almost no time for them to go 0 to 60 and destroy everything they built up from plot to characters to world building. But for as much as it sucks that I'm gonna have a Danganronpa-sized hole in my heart forever, and will always wonder what might have been, the good news is that it's over. We survived the story of hope versus despair and have arrived at our conclusion for the series, which means that now I never have to cover Danganronpa on the channel ever again and can finally move on with my life. Oh, you have got to be fucking kidding me. Every time I think I'm out, they pull me back in. Alright, let's do this. Let's get this over with. One final killing game. One final effort is all that remains. Then I can retire from Danganronpa forever. But before I go, I do have a few things left to go over. First and foremost, I want to give a very special shout out to Forgetful Gal 45 for lending her voice to the series throughout almost every single episode. I seriously cannot thank you enough for helping bring your sense of humor to the series, because it would have absolutely been worse off without it. Thank you so much, as always, for your help. If you all enjoyed her voice work, then be sure to show her some love in the comments. I'm sure she'd really appreciate it. She has also agreed to lend her voice to some of my upcoming Halo analysis videos, so, you know, you have that to look forward to. Speaking of my Halo retrospective series, for those of you that are worried about my release schedule for those videos, don't worry, I have not canceled them. I had every intention of releasing the Halo 2 video in May and the Halo 3 video this month, but then this little thing called Danganronpa 3 reared its ugly head out of nowhere and fucked everything up, as this show has basically consumed my entire schedule from the moment I started watching the first episode to the moment I rendered the series finale. But now that this fever dream is finally over, I can resume production on that series and get all those videos ready for release in the weeks leading up to Halo Infinite's launch. If you're not particularly interested in Halo content, but you still want to see more analytical videos to supplement my LPs, then fear not. I have a few additional projects in the pipeline covering some games that I've recently played through on the channel that I had a particularly strong reaction to. And by recently, I mean, within the past year or so. But they are in very, very early stages. I've barely begun working on researching and writing the scripts, which is just about as close to the beginning of the process as I can possibly be. And that's on top of the fact that we're about to get hit with a tsunami of new game releases that I want to either stream or cover with blind LPs, which will certainly do a more than adequate job of keeping me busy, especially with the star attraction of the summer right around the corner. So you will see those videos that I'm alluding to one day, but I'm going to take my time to make sure they're as best as they can be when they're ready for release. All good things to those who wait. And of course, as I teased, one day I will make a video explaining how mercilessly Toy Story 4 annihilated every substantive aspect of the original trilogy. One day. In the meantime, though, I do have plenty of content currently available on the channel that may pique your interest. If you managed to make it to this point and you've enjoyed my commentary style throughout the over 6-hour runtime of the series, then you might find these other videos of mine intriguing. To begin with, if you're looking to get into the Halo series before Halo Infinite launches this November, then I encourage you to check out my analysis of the game that started it all, Halo Combat Evolved. It is one of the most revolutionary video games ever created from almost every facet of design, and unlike some games that were revolutionary around the time of their release but have aged like absolute milk, Combat Evolved still plays like a dream. So if you're interested in hearing about all that and more, or if you're looking to get caught up with the series before Infinite comes out, then I would recommend this video and its follow-up videos as they release throughout the year. If you're feeling a bit more adventurous and you want to listen to me talk about a game that you may very well have never heard of before, my proudest creation is undoubtedly my Dragon's Lair 3D analysis video. Dragon's Lair 3D is my favorite video game of all time, even exceeding the legendary stories of Ace Attorney, pulse-pounding epicness of the Halo games, and wondrous platforming of Battle for Bikini Bottom. And because of that, I wanted to do it justice. I spent upwards of 4 full months redrafting my script front to back again and again, going over every line with a fine-tooth comb to make sure I was as clear as I could possibly be in communicating my ideas. It is an absolute tragedy that this game is as underappreciated as it is. Games like Cuphead, Halo, Battle for Bikini Bottom, and Ace Attorney are very widely adored by the general population, but almost nobody has heard about Dragon's Earth 3D, and that's what I sought out to change with this video, because I genuinely believe that it is as close as you can possibly get to crafting a perfect game, and so I poured my heart and soul into sharing its magic with the world. If you're curious as to why I adore this game so much on a personal level, as well as why it exceeds across every fundamental element of game design, irrespective of my personal reasons for loving it, then I cannot recommend this video enough. It is my magnum opus, and it's likely always going to stay that way. Or if none of that interests you at all, but you're new to the channel and you just want to see more Danganronpa coverage, then you'll be pleased to know that I have full Let's Plays of every game in the series up until this point, with a V3 LP coming up very soon, as well as a rant video talking about how crappy the OVA is. Although, in retrospect, I'd watch the OVA a million times over before I ever touch this atrocity of a show ever again. But regardless, it's all there for you to watch. Other analysis videos covering a variety of games close to my heart, almost 8 years worth of LPs across games of all types of genres, as well as plenty of Danganronpa content are all available to tide you over until V3 now that the series is concluded. And finally, I want to say one last thank you to every single one of you for sticking with me throughout this crazy Danganronpa adventure and watching my LPs of these games. It truly does mean the world to me, because without you, I wouldn't be able to keep making these videos. Your support means more to me than I could ever possibly put into words, and I am eternally grateful that you've decided I'm a content creator worthy of your time. Thank you all so much for your continued support for this channel. For as much as this show royally pissed me off, I love making videos for you all, and so long as there's an audience that wants to see what I create, then I've got no plans of stopping anytime soon. And of course, my Danganronpa V3 LP is on the way. We're not quite out of this mess just yet. But for now, I'm gonna go get some rest after staring at the editing bay almost non-stop for the past month or so. I'm gonna take the weekend to relax and stream some games by myself and with my friends, and that starts today because good lord almighty, I need a break from this garbage. If you want to see me play through my favorite game of all time, Dragon's Earth 3D, to 100% completion, I'll be going live on Twitch later today at 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Figured after spending the past month analyzing one of the worst things ever created, we may as well balance it out with the best game I've ever played. Then tomorrow, Neil and I will be going live at the same time as always, 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we'll be streaming our playthrough of Sniper Elite 4. Then, on Sunday, in honor of Sonic's 30-year anniversary this week, I'll be streaming a full playthrough of Sonic Generations to take a trip down memory lane of Sonic's most memorable escapades. All of these streams will be archived to the channel for those who can't catch them live, but those are my plans for the weekend. I'm just going to take a few days to relax and play some awesome games after a month of torture. Rest assured, I'll be back with my regular schedule of 3 videos per day starting on Monday, featuring the premiere of my blind playthrough of Danganronpa V3, as well as 2 other new LPs I'm going to be keeping a secret for now. In the meantime, if you're new here, you can catch up on my older Danganronpa LPs in preparation for the grand finale, or check out some of my other analysis videos. Once again, I'd like to thank you all very much for watching, and hope to see you all soon for the start of my Danganronpa V3 LP, or whatever else you decide to watch next. Goodbye.